Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning, honorable examiners and all participants. My name is Afifah Laela. I'm from English Education Department, Faculty of Teacher Training and Education, Universitas Pancasakti Tegal. Today, I would like to present my research proposal entitled Error Analysis of Word Stress in Multisyllabic Words and its Implications for Teaching Pronunciation in EFL Classrooms, a case study of junior high school students. Here's the first slide is background of the study. Pronunciation is one of the essential components in language learning because it plays an important role in achieving intelligibility and effective communication. When learners pronounce words incorrectly, misunderstanding may occur during communication. One important aspect of pronunciation is word stress. Word stress refers to the prominence given to a particular syllable within a word. Correct placement of word stress contributes significantly to intelligibility because listeners rely on stress patterns to recognize spoken words. However, Indonesian learners of English as a foreign language frequently experience difficulties in placing stress correctly, especially in multisyllabic words. According to Carjo in 2016, EFL learners often produce errors in word stress placements. These errors may reduce intelligibility and lead to misunderstanding in communication. Therefore, pronunciation, particularly word stress, should receive greater attention in English language teaching. Furthermore, most previous studies have focused on university students or adult learners, while studies involving junior high school students remain limited. Based on this gap, the researcher intends to investigate word stress errors produced by junior high school students and explore their pedagogical implication for teaching pronunciation in EFL classrooms. Here's the next slide is research problems. Based on the background that has been explained, this study addresses two research problems. The first research problem is what types of word stress errors are produced by junior high school students in pronouncing multisyllabic English words. The second research problem is what are the pedagogical implications of these errors for teaching pronunciation in EFL classrooms? The next slide is objectives of the study. In accordance with the research problems, this study has two objectives. The first objective is to identify the types of word stress errors produced by junior high school students in pronouncing multisyllabic English words. The second objective is to explore the pedagogical implications of those errors for teaching pronunciation in EFL classrooms. The next slide is significance of the study. This study is expected to provide theoretical, practical, and pedagogical significance. From the theoretical perspective, the study is expected to contribute to the existing literature on English pronunciation, particularly in the areas of word stress and error analysis among EFL learners. From the practical perspective, the study is expected to help teachers identify students' pronunciation difficulties and improve pronunciation instruction in the classroom. From the pedagogical perspective, the findings of this study are expected to provide insights for designing more effective pronunciation teaching strategies in EFL classrooms. Here's the previous study. Several previous studies have been reviewed to support this research. First, Carjo in 2016 found that EFL learners frequently make errors in placing word stress, particularly in multisyllabic words. Second, Aditya in 2023 found that students often misplace stress in four-syllable words due to first language inference and limited phonological awareness. Third, Bagbah and Jagannathan in 2023 reported that longer words, especially three-syllabic and multisyllabic words, tend to result in more lexical stress errors. And fourth, Min Tuan in 2018 found that learners' ability to recognize stress patterns significantly influenced their pronunciation accuracy. And lastly, Utami and Yulia in 2022 reported that Indonesian EFL learners still experience difficulties in placing correct stress in three-syllabic and tetrasyllabic words. Here's the next slide is research gap. Although previous studies have contributed significantly to the field of pronunciation research, several research gaps still exist. Most previous studies focused on adult learners or university students. Some studies did not discuss pedagogical implication, while others only focus on proficiency levels or involve prospective teachers as participants. Therefore, this study differs from previous studies because it focuses on junior high school students and explores not only the types of word stress errors, but also their pedagogical implications for teaching pronunciation in EFL classrooms. The next slide is theoretical review. This study is based on four main theories. The first theory is pronunciation. According to Fadilah in 2020, pronunciation refers to the way sounds, words, and utterance are produced in a language. Pronunciation affects intelligibility and communication effectiveness. The second theory is word stress. According to Cooper in 2022, word stress refers to the prominence given to a particular syllable within a word, and correct stress placement contributes to intelligibility. The third theory is error analysis. Error analysis is an approach used to identify, classify, and interpret learners' errors. Through error analysis, researchers can understand learners' difficulties in language learning. The last theory concerns teaching pronunciation in EFL classrooms. According to Pardede in 2018, explicit pronunciation instructions can improve learners' pronunciation performance and communicative competence. The next slide is conceptual framework. This slide presents the conceptual framework of the study. The study begins with the broad concept of pronunciation and specifically focuses on word stress in multisyllabic words. Students' pronunciation performance will be collected through pronunciation tasks. The data obtained will then be analyzed using error analysis in order to identify the types of word stress errors produced by the students. The findings from the error analysis are expected to reveal students' pronunciation difficulties. Finally, these findings will be used to formulate pedagogical implications that may contribute to more effective pronunciation teaching practices in EFL classrooms. The next slide is research method. This study employs a qualitative approach using a case study design in an EFL classroom context. The participants of the study consist of approximately 38 grade students and one English teacher at SMP Negeri 1 Tegal. The study uses two types of data. The first is pronunciation data, which includes students' pronunciation recordings, identified word stress errors, and the second is interview data, which include interview transcripts and information related to pronunciation teaching practices. The next slide is research instruments. To collect the data, the study employs three research instruments. The first instrument is a pronunciation test, which is used to identify students' word stress errors in multisyllabic English words. The second instrument is voice recording. This instrument is used to record students' pronunciation performance for further analysis. The third instrument is a semi-structured interview, which is conducted to obtain information regarding pronunciation difficulties and pronunciation teaching practices. The next slide is validity, reliability, and data collection. To ensure the quality of the instrument, this study applies several procedures of validity and reliability. For validity, this study applies content validity, expert judgment, and face validity. Content validity is established by aligning the instrument with the junior high school syllabus and Brown's theory, and expert judgment is conducted by involving two experts to evaluate the appropriateness of the instruments. Meanwhile, face validity is used to ensure that the instruments are clear and understandable for the participants. Regarding reliability, this study applies inter-rater reliability, in which two raters assess students' pronunciation performances. The data collection process consists of 5 stages, namely preparing the instruments, administering the pronunciation tests, recording students' pronunciation, and identifying word stress errors, and also conducting interviews with the English teachers. The next slide is data analysis. For pronunciation data, the researcher will first transcribe the recordings, identify the errors, classify the errors, and finally interpret the findings. Meanwhile, interview data will be analyzed using thematic analysis proposed by Brown and Clark in 2006. The stages include familiarizing with the data, generating initial codes, searching for themes, reviewing themes, naming themes, and producing the final report. The last slide is triangulation. To ensure the credibility and trustworthiness of the findings, the study applies triangulations. First, source triangulation is conducted by comparing information obtained from students and the English teachers. Second, method triangulation is applied by using 3 different methods of data collection, namely pronunciation test, voice recordings, and interviews. By applying triangulation, the researcher expects to obtain more credible and trustworthy findings. That is all about my research proposal presentations. Thank you very much for your attentions. I highly appreciate any suggestion and constructive feedback for the improvement of this research proposal. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.